Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode until the question and answer session throughout today's conference call. At that time, you may press star 1 to ask a question over the phone. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to Greg Bishak. Thank you. You may begin, sir.
Good morning. It's Greg Shack, Program Manager of Financial Strategies and Research at CDFI Fund. I have with us today Doe, who works on CDFI program, data and analysis, Paul Markovitz with our IT unit, Trevor Henry, who people know on the New Markets program, Oscar Gonzalez from Financial Research and Strategies, and then Dave Geldman from our contractor who helped us do heavy lifting of moving CIIS and AMIS, and will be here to assist with questions, particularly since we have the vendors aboard. The new day, moving CIIS to AMIS. Just a few preliminaries before we jump in. So with CIIS, all functionality being translated into the AMIS environment, all our systems will be able to talk to each other. The big efficient gain is that the data collection is no longer residing on the clunky old servers over at the Trade and Tobacco Bureau, which was really the cause of all the problems we had with system availability. And clearly, as you know, infamously on the 630 reporting tsunami, we always had the system crash, plus we had problems with the firewalls. CIIS had to go. There were firewalls between CIIS and the AMIS system and our other legacy systems, particularly our Allocation Tracking system, which made it difficult for them to talk to each other. Those problems are now gone because we're all behind the same firewall. Everything is within AMIS. And in fact, this is part of a life cycle of reporting. Very entrance into our system, setting up an organizational account in AMIS through your applications, your awards, and then your reporting. And everything basically is organized through your organizational profile, which gives permissions, also allows you to see transparently all reports that are due, when they're due. So it's an integrated system. That's a huge gain. The capacity of the system, because it's cloud computing, it will be immensely enhanced, and I believe system availability will be greatly, without doubt, will be greatly enhanced. And that's a big deal. All you folks who've suffered through the trials and tribulations of CIIS in the almost Soviet-era days of our system will no longer have to look back on that. But, you know, again, our apologies about that, but now we're in a new environment, and I think it's a big deal. This will be without a learning curve, and we're going to go over the nuts and bolts of the upload, particularly of multiple records, both with the CSV files and also the XML files. This WebEx is principally geared toward vendors. We want you to be able to get, you know, basically certified as being compatible with our system and demonstrate that you have the ability to assist your clients and customers for which you do provide reporting for a variety of our programs. I don't know who all is on. Feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions and answers. I want to go about this, though, is there's some natural breaks in the narrative here. And let me just give you a quick run on what the topics are, sort of three broad sections. First is really focused on CDFI compliance and performance reporting in AMIS. Section is on the CDE compliance and reporting. The second section is we'll take a deep dive on the mechanics of reading and error correction. Also not going to be able to go into all the different reporting functions just because of time. For we'll focus a bit on QEI closeouts but all the other reporting functions that were in the CIIS environment have been transferred and recreated within the AMIS environment. And finally, we'll talk about vendor AMIS test accessibility. Some of you have already reached out to us to ask about this. I don't know if maybe a few of you that have already looked at this probably have. And the system is not up yet. It's not up until September 1. You won't be able to go in and test your access to the system or even get the XML schema until the system goes live. We apologize for not being able to provide you a preview. That's one of the things is we're still literally down the wire with data migration and final details of sort of trying to debug the huge transfer of data. And we have some minor little corrections we're making. And during September, we expect that a lot of people are going to be wanting to look through this functionality, and that's why we're doing this outreach. To say we had hoped to do this about a month ago, but this is the reality of timing, and we hope that over the course of the next few weeks we can answer all of your questions and get everybody up and running. What we'll do is in between each section, we'll go through it, then I'll take questions in two ways through the Q&A function that you can see on your WebEx. I hope everybody can hear me clearly. And the participants, if you can't, just let us know, either type in something. There's a log of who's called in, and we'll get that information from the WebEx operator, and will be published on the website along with the PowerPoint. As we go through each section, I'll take a break, ask for questions. You can also call in, ask questions, and you can use the typing function too. We'll do it either both ways. In between each section, and but if you have any urgent question that comes up while we're going along, I think there's just few enough people that we should be able to do this. It worked out pretty well yesterday. Maybe some of you were on the call yesterday, but the board, again, we appreciate it. So, just an overview, as we've already said, September 1, the system will go live. You'll be able to get in there, noodle around, see how the templates work, find the XML schema. You folks, no doubt, will want to look at that. It'll detail the principal changes, assist AMIS. In this case, we're first looking at CDFI compliance reporting. We have another issue that we realized that there were only about 20 CDFIs, and Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there were only CDEs that did manage to report 2017. We're going to reach out to those folks that have already been contacted by the compliance unit to submit their wanted to submit, and then we'll work with them to help them understand how to reconfigure and submit. In the case of CDFIs, they won't have to submit an ILR, only the TLR to complete their 2017 reports. The other thing that's new in CDFI reporting is that the ILR has been eliminated, and that there's a new consumer loan and investment table only for banks and credit unions, and we'll go into that in more detail. We'll discuss how in CDFI reporting the certification and submission of TLRs occur. We'll go into the upload in detail in the new markets discussion. We decided to break up this discussion into sort of subject areas first with CDFI, then move into more of the mechanics of reporting in the new markets discussion. A quick overview. And again, if you have questions, feel free to shoot them to us as we go along. As I noted in CDFI reporting, we've eliminated the ILR, the Institutional Level Report, because the annual certification report, by and large, captures most of that data. There's one thing that's not captured through the annual certification report that was in the ILR, namely this consumer loan purpose table, which we'll discuss in more detail voluntarily. But that ILR is going away. We want to minimize burden. The other thing we've done to minimize burden, and it's a fairly big deal, and I want to thank Yang Do, who really helped us think this thing through, CDFI, which was only having CDFIs report new loans originated in the fiscal year. Obviously, as you know, and you guys know more than most, we have loans outstanding also being reported, and the volume, needless to say, was much larger. So, have eliminated the variables related to those loans outstanding fields. We're only asking for projected jobs and projected impacts, because if we're only collecting data at the origination, one data point that's at the end of the reporting year, others are just at the point of origination, you have actual outcomes. You'll just have projected outcomes. So we made the bold decision to eliminate actuals. Well, investee addresses and some optional fields. The other optional fields, many have converted to conditional or mandatory, principally driven by the changes in the FA application, the new financial assistance objectives. As anybody who deals with CDFI knows, are driving performance goals and measures, and so some of these optional fields have now become conditional or mandatory. We can talk about those. Expanded pick list, in particular for transaction type, low income status, other populations, end users, and again, it's just a pick list. A conditional description for the other targeted population, which many people, by the way, have asked for in the past. On the last public comment period on SIS data collection, so we included here. The end user just pick list. And we have, for loans that are guaranteed by third parties, a pick list, which is an innovation. Again, something that we had many questions over the years and comments from the last PRA or public comment. So we had that, ostensibly responding to your comments and requests. We took an old data point that was, is this a healthy food financing initiative project, and instead expanded it to be able to differentiate between different types of financial assistance awards. As you know now, the CDFI program has many different kinds of awards. The CDFI financial assistance, non-financial assistance, both those are Class A awards. Then we have persistent poverty FA awards, the food financing FA awards, and now we have disability financing FA awards. We decided that it was best if we could identify at the outset what type of FA award you have. This helps drive also developing kind of responses in the questions. Finally, the big thing is the consumer loan purchase table for banks and credit unions. Now, banks and credit unions, anybody who deals with banks and credit unions, I know there's going to be some discussion over this point. We'll be glad to delve into it more. The largest single chunk of loans that are made are consumer loans. And in the past, in the ILR, we had this summary table that showed loan purchase, and people would summarize the number and amount of loans for the loan purchase. But we allowed credit unions and banks to use that table to report their consumer loans, but what wasn't happening was we were capturing kind of locational information, nor were we capturing information on key things that are required for validating their compliance with the performance goals and measures for target markets, both the investment area or serving a targeted population. The purpose of the loan purchase table for credit unions is to be able to capture that at a census tract level. Now, a census tract level seems like a small unit of geography. We'll discuss this more. But by statute, in order to be able to define if you're in an qualified investment area, we have to summarize data, and there's ways banks, credit unions can use their loan processing software, we believe, to do that. ways we can geocode this in a sensible and efficient fashion to do that. We'll talk about that. Regulated CDFIs will continue to report their consumer loans through the transactional level report. And just to emphasize, we do this for banks and credit unions to preserve confidentiality, to eliminate the prospect of having personally identifying information that could be reverse engineered. At the census tract level, it'd be impossible really to reverse engineer it there. It now allows us to really validate their activities against their performance goals and measures. This is going to be new and probably the biggest single thing in the redesign. Everything else is a reduced burden, reduced burden, CDFI reporting. No RLR, dramatic reduction in the volume of TLR. So the really big thing is that loan purchase table. So feel free, we have one question here. For the expanded pick list, will we be able to choose more than one transaction type? No. There are some changes.
No, I think we make a mistake for the third-party pick list. It should be the transaction type, which is mentioned already.
Okay.
For the guarantee by the third party, it should be the same. So he's right. Kevin's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There might be.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
All right. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay. So what should be in your CDFI TLR? So only the new loans and investments originated during the reporting period by the entity deploying the FA award. And again, here, the awardee. And there's only one disconnect between who the awardee is and who deploys the funds, and that would be a bank holding company, that affiliate that would be deploying funds. That's where the affiliate's special report of loan originations has to take place. So want to make clear that that applies usually to maybe a dozen or 14 entities in any given year. But otherwise, it's usually just the awardees that just reporting what originated. Exclude loan purchases, loan participations. Yang, you want to?
Yes, only include the loan that your CDFI originated. If you participate with another CDFI to originate the loan, you just need to report the portion that you are responsible. So for example, you participate in another CDFI to originate a loan of $1,000, but you are only responsible for about 50% of $1,000. So when you report on the CDFI TOR, you should report the 50% of that, which is $500, which is a real amount. Just report the portion that you are responsible for that participation.
Again, exclude your new markets tax credit activity that was funded by qualified equity investments, and likewise, CMF, capital Magnet fund activity funded by CMF. You get guidance from CMF. It's pretty explicit about that, not the co-report. We're emphasizing that here. And you know your organization's reporting period, you know, the end of your fiscal year. You guys know that, I think, all too well, but now in AMIS we do have a clear set of reports and reporting dates for organizations, so that should be clear. Let's see some other questions coming in. Sounds like new guidance for participations. That guidance is not okay.
Yes, we will clarify that more. I understand yesterday people asked the same question about loan participation, okay. So we put on the guidance to clarify that point.
We'll deal with Kevin's suggestion here about the guarantees. Good feedback, folks. But on to the consumer loan purchase table, which is a big deal. And really, see when we talk about how the structure of reporting is, there's be a template for this for consumer loan purchase reporting table. And really what we're attempting to do is to sum up the consumer loans by organization, by fiscal year, at the census tract level, the number and amount of loans originated, and a different identifier, the number and amount that went to any kind of low-income targeted population or targeted population. And it's a big aggregate. We're not asking what other targeted population. We're just aggregating up the details of the aggregate numbers so that we can just sort of say yes or no, met this PG&M. If you had a performance goal and measure for this bank or credit union to serve low-income targeted populations outside a qualified investment area or other targeted population in some geographic region, we can determine, based just on the FIPS code and set of data, that you deployed a certain number of a certain number of loans in the year. And this makes it easier to essentially validate the performance goals that program sets forth in your assistance agreement for the bank credit union. This was, we had the great forbearance with the large institutions because CIIS was not working that well and because the volume was so great. We weren't collecting these data points, but we always, when we did this, we said eventually we're going to have to come back and get this data. And this was our opportunity when we did this regime change. And we wanted to make sure we eliminated the threat of confidential information being compromised in some way by aggregating up at this level. We think this is a good functional compromise. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but one thing we think that if you're able to do this with your loan servicing software, outside the system, summarizes these data points and code them en masse. And frankly, if you use, for instance, the Census Bureau's geocoder, use the 2010s, and we're issuing some guidance on this, we think. You can process a lot more coding through their computer than SIMS does. But again, one other thing about credit unions and banks, usually they all have 12/31. Most of them have 12/31 end of the fiscal year, so they're reporting at 6/30. Banks and credit unions have their financials done by January. They could start reporting in February. We'd always encourage people to report as early as possible. But for one reason or another, things got delayed. Now, with the system, you know, no reason why people can't come in earlier and do it. But you're staggering it. Even the SIMS geocoder shouldn't be taxed, and you should be able to use it and do your geocoding. But we do explorations on how we can efficiently allow and particularly high volume. And there is some small CDFIs, and I'll just say there's one in New York to a lot of micro loans that pose a significant challenge for us that we need to come back and think about creating similar functionality. But this is a big deal. But it's also, I think, straightforward. And, but it's a change in CDFI reporting. Maybe questions about this, but I'm going to move on to those with late reports. I think people, if you were on yesterday, you know that 20 CDFIs that weren't able to submit their TLRs. One thing is that with late reporting, you have to do the ILR this year. Just give us your TLR now, attach it to the org profile. We're going to work with Creative and go look at their TLR, make recommendations on how it would be reconfigured, basically eliminating all of the loan outstanding data points, the extraneous data points, give us new originations. These are the key things that you need to report. And a walkthrough on the new templates, which we'll be talking about shortly. We'll use the new markup markets discussion to talk about the templates, but they work the same way. Over September, we'll be working with people to do this through the help desk, like assisting anybody who had a late report. But in spite of all the problems we had, again, with CIIS this year, only 20 CDFIs, and I think some CDEs that didn't get through the hurdles. The data guidance was pretty familiar. It looks the sort of same as it was under CIIS, but it's been revised. I think there's a lot of new instructional points. I think validations have been cleaned up. I know that both Yang and Fanat and I creative went through it pretty closely, but again, yesterday we had some constructive comments. I know Kevin made some yesterday. There's some today. We want those edits. You guys getting to see bugs and validations. We'll probably discover those. But again, testing, careful testing was done. And there isn't anything really dramatically new here except for the loan purpose table, consumer loan purchase table. The guide is basically the same, but again, we welcome comments. Share this information for those who were not able to complete their 2017 reports. Absolutely. This is a public domain. We're going to put this on the website. This next is going to be published too on the website. Power Wellbeing. This is all open source. So on the consumer loan purchase table, this gives you an idea what the interface looks like within AMIS when you go there. Off on the ribbon at the top for the you're going to your home page, your organizational information. You'll click on the import export, and you'll select in the drop down to consumer loan and investment origination table, and you'll this instead of the TLR. And this is for credit unions and banks. And Dave, is the system really only allowing credit unions and banks? They'll get an error if they try to do this. Right? If you're not.
They shortly after the release, when we go live with that validation wasn't built in, but in our backlog to do it.
Okay. But, you know, just to be clear, credit unions and banks are still required to report all their other loans in the regular TLR, but this is special, and it's an attempt to take the high volume loans and the ones with the most personally identifying information out. By the way, anything else that others submit, we don't publish any data that has addresses in it for CDFIs that have any person identifying information. We put all STIPS codes anyway. This is an additional high-level safeguard that we put into our data collection, data management, and we appreciate the credit unions and banks about this. That's why we designed this particular functionality. This is a one-off data tree and the interface would look like as opposed to using the multiple record upload in the CSV, which we'll talk about again in a new market. The interface, if you've already worked in AMIS, you'll recognize the look and feel of the AMIS website. It's pretty straightforward, pretty intuitive drop down. I don't know if you have any comments to add to that, Yang. But I'll just cut to the chase. There's like a simple certification process, and I'm not going through all the upload for CSV and XML because we're going to talk about that in new markets, just to be concise. But certify your CDFI TLRs, you'll navigate to the import-export certify tab again, select your organization, and on the certify button, certification statement, which again is much shorter, much more concise. Legal did a nice job putting down, and it shouldn't give people heartburn. We know some people had heartburn occasionally when they'd read that long statement and not want to press the but certify. I think it's pretty obvious what we're asking for is the data quality, that based on this and you believe all the requirements under your assistance agreement have been met. That's it. Then you hit certify. If you have no validation errors, it'll be certified. And really, you shouldn't have any validation errors at this point, as you'll see when we go through the upload and error correction process, which we'll discuss when we turn to the new markets. But a quick, very high level to just the CDFI reporting. A massive reduction of burden for everybody. There's some new fields, and frankly, as you go through things, if you notice things that you want clarification on changes, please help us. When you do certification, we will have transparency in the system for you to see the stamps and so forth. I know you could do this in CIIS, but this is a little bit more comprehensive, more transparent, and it's a nice standard record-keeping process that now you have even transparency into the system. But speaking of transparency into the system, the AMIS, the integration of CIIS and the AMIS, now one basic service request process to help tickets go through the service request in AMIS. We're actually reorganizing how we these help desk tickets. We're developing better operating procedures within the fund. But the one stop, it goes there, and as you know, you can go in and sort of see what the status of your ticket is. And actually, it's better for us because we can now see into the help desk ticketing process. We were always inhibited by the firewall and being able to look into systems and see the status of your tickets. We no longer have that problem. We all have more transparency, and we're seeking to even improve that more. So both certification and help desk, I think things are going to be an improvement. The final thing, all financial statements, as you may know already, are now appended to your order file in your AMIS account, and that's where everything gets uploaded. And use your organization tab, and you click on New Financial Audit Statement button, and then you can get to that. That's a quick tour of CDFI. Before we move on, I don't know if there's any questions. People could feel free to call in or just type in a question. Otherwise, we would move on to the new markets RLR and TLR reporting. Here that we're going to get into the map uploads and the XML schemas. There are no questions. I mean, operator, feel free to entertain any calls that might come in and just alert us. But otherwise, just type in your key questions and we'll answer them too. All right. So. It begins on September 1. Basically, after Labor Day, you'll be able to get in there. But for those who need to, you can go in and you can attempt to access the templates. And if you have questions, then you can submit those questions to the help desk, to the service request. We will get on immediately because we're going to learn by doing and helping you, and probably develop some FAQs along the way. It's going to be a learning curve for all of us. The single biggest difference is how you do your mass uploads. So after September 1, you can get in. The IR and TLR and new markets is the Replication Process data structure. There's some minor changes which we'll be talking about in detail. You can do the line by line through the user interface of AMIS. If you've done any work in AMIS, you're familiar with the look and feel of that. And everything works through your organizational and allocation award automation. The T reporting will be done in a similar fashion as CIIS, but multiple transactions, you use a CSV. Different is you don't have that for Excel template where you had the 3 tabs, you had the note, the project, and the address all in one. Upload, you have 3 separate file uploads. So a little more, it's a little awkward, but that's the format that we're using in the Salesforce environment. If people know, we'll have suggestions to us on how we might innovate here. We would welcome that, but this is the current first iteration structure of reporting in Salesforce. And there's also the XML schema. So we're able to give you a preview of the XML schema, but now you have to go through and use the import certified button to get the template. See that momentarily. The other things in reporting in AMIS for new markets. And Trevor's on the phone. He may have exited for another call, but the allocation tracking system has been transitioned already into AMIS. That happened back in May. It was a bit of a blackout period there, but we did the data migration. That was the first into the AMIS system. But now we have sort of a life cycle being built in AMIS from the actual application, then the allocation tracking system, and various types of reporting that once was in CIIS. We have the multi-CDE reporting. We'll be talking about that a little bit. There's one change, which we'll talk about until otherwise it's pretty much the same. Sub-CDE dissolution report, pretty much the same. Quality equity investment report. If at the Aerial Ventures Conference, someone asked me if there was going to be multiple uploads in the QEI. I think I misspoke at that conference. I don't think it's the case. We're not there yet. Nor is the QEI distribution and disbursement reporting done with multiple uploads yet. That's on our backlog. These are 2 things that will have to be built out in the next iteration. Which happened earlier. We may not, we still have to work with the contractor on this in IT, but I think we have a backlog plan on that. Don't you, Dave?
You do, Greg.
Yeah, thank you. So kind of a quick overview here. Let's see. Will the XML element names match the field names of TLR documentation? If not, will not the document be provided? There is a crosswalk. Generally, field names do, but there are some minor changes, aren't there? Field names?
The field names themselves, not so much. I think the difference really for new markets comes between, say, a new project and a new note versus something that's being updated.
Okay. I'm not sure if the question was asked, but are you going to provide a direct API into the system? Well, this is your interface in the system. AMIS and the, as you'll see, we're going to go through how you access everything in AMIS. There's, we'll show you examples. The instructions actually have a lot of screenshots, and they do walk you fairly carefully through how you access this in the system. Just for CDE reporting, in our Table 13, the QEI and investment account tables will be auto-populated. In the TLR project business description, now all non-real estate projects, where collect key type equals quality B, will provide additional business description. This is something that the program staff and new markets have asked, and it's principally to be able to establish that your project is generally consistent with what you put in your application. Everyone knows that the application for the project pipeline can't precisely be reflected ultimately in your compliant performance reporting, but we want to know you're going to do charter schools, you said you're going to do health clinics, give us a description that gives us more information so that we can understand that it's generally consistent with what you reported in your application and what you got an allocation for, or the organization got an allocation for. That's here. Before it was generic, now it's mandatory. The markets eligibility table now has the American Community Survey 2015 Census FIPS codes for reporting option, and we have guidance already. It's been up for almost, I don't know how much, Oscar, has been more than 6 months, maybe almost a year. We've had up there new markets that we anticipated doing this. We have a grandfathering period. The program was very clear about it. The cut is October 1st, transition all the report new projects into the 2015 FIPS codes, but prior to that you have the option of using the earlier one. Help desk, the AMIS help desk will have 2 people on the help desk to assist with this process of people with these file uploads. And we'll talk about the file uploads shortly, but we are going to staff it, and then we're going to have some additional assistance with CDFI contacts, CCME, and FSNR, as well as IT. We in addition have an option, the option for collaborative reporting is being removed from the multi-CDE reporting. Let me explain why. A lot of people were using it. The data quality was poor, although it was improving. Most people were using the lead, and we're doing a regime change. It seemed like a obvious point to essentially define going forward the lead reporting as the ambiguous way to sort of do this multi-CDE reporting. For those who actually are wedded to this collaborative approach because they've done it for a period of time under a given allocation, we will continue to support that. We're also looking at helping people just convert to being a lead reporter if they've done collaborative reporting before, but it's being removed because it seemed like an obvious change in the regime break. So otherwise, things are pretty much the same in multi-CDE reporting, although the way the interface looks is different. It's clearer. And when it's established, particularly in the lead, you find your objectives in terms of the reported outcomes. This is pretty clear on that. Now report to cookies as they're closed. Now, if you're making new markets applications, program often sends out a spreadsheet and says, okay, we know reported all your cookies in the CIIS system yet, so please tell us any transactions that you've closed that you already know about, you haven't yet reported because your end of the fiscal year hasn't happened. Well, now you can go into the system and do this. And this is useful for new markets. It's a transition period. I think Rosa said at the conference earlier this week that she was still going to send out that spreadsheet because we're just unfolding this now and she'll need the data. She doesn't want to create any ambiguity on this, but a little bit of duplication of effort. But once we get everybody used to it, be able to put your cookies in as they close was very useful for application reviews. And for the reporting period, once you put all yours in and you submit, certify, you'll have a lot of the work in advance. So it helps. Here's a big summary on what one of the major changes is for new markets. At the beginning of the fiscal year, you'll have the unlocked, okay, so that you can go in and there's a set of particular data points principally around the actual jobs. And again, let me say, we recognize now we need to do a bit of enhancement on the guidance here. The point is, you can put in projected jobs and just project it. But actual jobs, you got to wait for the project to mature. It may take 2, 3, maybe 4 years even. When you get steady state, then you enter the actual job. We only want you to report that once. We don't want the numbers bouncing around year to year. So, once you do this, the fields will be fixed. Change is the note level, the amount charged off, the amount recovered, days delinquent. You can see them listed here. And then the loan source status. So the objective here, we've tried to identify all the key things that need to be done here. I think that this is a way to reduce burden in a way, but we need to, I think, improve our guidance here. Now that we've put this out, we realize this might be interpreted. We're basically looking for you to find the steady state of the project and give us that defined outcome. The pretty outcomes that's fixed. We don't want these bouncing around. So here you go in, this is like the manual data entry. You're in the system, you see, this is like what the little slice of the web page, your home, your organization tab. Select your organization name. You click on it, and then you're able to select ILR link and do a report. Submit a new ILR and select, click Sort of go in, you'll have a clean interface. It'll look like these other screens which you've seen screenshots of, and do the data entry. The ILR tables will multiple responses. You'll be able to sort of, like for instance, new non-QEI investment table. You'll be able to click on that and row by row enter the data. That's the other dimension of ILR. You use the basic interface in the The functionality of the table is pretty intuitive. You add a row, you click corresponding new button to add a row, and then the system will prompt you to save, and then you continue. And each row has the definitions of the fields and pick list to complete the row, and then you click the save button. You can't go back. You have a back button, so it's pretty intuitive. On clicking OK, you can proceed, give your information. By the end of the ILR, you will be able to have a separate certification. There'll be separate certifications for ILR and TLR. We'll go over that momentarily in more detail. The ILR is unable to save due to an error message. You'll receive the error message and then make the changes in order to save it. To modify, you can go down. You have this possibility of tables in particular to edit or to delete. And pretty obvious what the action is to click edit or delete. You'll be able to go in and row by row make the edit changes. And you can also go back. So again, it's pretty intuitive. Similar thing with deleting a report in the table. Certifying, I mentioned user must certify the ILR upon completion. A separate certification process for both the ILR and TLR, and the law transparency in the system when it's done. In case of ILR, you'll have already worked through all your errors, so we certify there shouldn't be any surprises at the end. With the TLR, likewise, as we'll see as we go through with the upload and the error correction, we've already done that, so when you go to certify, there shouldn't be any surprises. So wait here if I hear. Example of the certification statement, super consistent, no longer legalese scary. That should be less painful psychologically to certify and submit when you do this, and it's pretty clear. And likewise, you have a record when you do it, and you can go in and look at everything that you've certified for those vendors who do multiple organizations. You'll be able to look at it. Example of the TLR manual data entry. We're using the UI if you were doing something in a line by line. Go in, you get your access to your org, you select TLR projects, you hit create new, and it's again pretty intuitive. I like the notes, same kind of thing. You select the TLR notes, click new source button, fill out the information. It's intuitive. This is just a sense of a screenshot to give you an idea of the look and feel of what notes. Sorry, this isn't as clear as it might be. It's a little, but you'll see when you get in here. It's got a lot of white space. Put on reading glasses. The type tends to be small, but it's very obvious how to navigate. I think once you get used to the look and feel of AMIS, likewise with assigning the QEIs to the clickies and the loan source amounts, clicky details. This is, of course, it's a manual kind of data entry view of the screen. It's not the mass upload. We'll turn to that momentarily. Just a way if you're going to go in and edit one note or something like that, this is what it would look like. Pretty forward. Project address, again, if you're doing this at a sort of one-off data entry look, this is how it would look for creating a new address. And, you know, this is how it would look in the interface. You can add straightforward. Again, this is like the manual entry. So, excuse me. Next to the CSV file upload, this is what most of you vendors really are going to be dealing with, plus the XML. The interesting thing is that the error corrections are very identical in the way it works. So, excuse me. To get the template, you're in your organizational access given the allocation that you're trying to manage. Click the TLR Import Export tab on the bar, select your organization. You go down and select the type of template. Now notice there's 3 separate templates here. You can probably see them in the screen. The New Markets TLR project, your note, TLR. Do you want to speak to the hierarchical nature of the reporting on this?
So there's a certain sequence when in new data for the TLR markets, you start with your project first, and then your address, and then you're going to do your notes and your transactions. And keep in mind, there is a distinction between what's new and then what's being updated. So for everything that is being updated, we do kind of require, and you can see to the right here, there's another column that says update. We do require you to kind of to basically export and use those CSVs. So when you do the update, basically you're exporting kind of the data that's already in a system, and you are using that template to modify the data. And the differences that I kind of spoke to earlier is that there's going to be a small segment of fields for the update, for the year-over-year changes. And you'll notice that the number of fields in the update files are a lot shorter. I mean, there's a lot fewer fields as opposed to the new. That, in essence, is process at a high level.
So one question where you're putting that nice answer and view into the system, which was, will we be giving each vendor access to a testbed account name as right? Perhaps that now.
Yeah, for the vendors, we are giving the option of accessing an AMIS test environment. I think there's some slides probably toward the end of this deck that go over that. But at a high level, what you'll do is you'll just contact the AMIS help desk. They'll get you your ID in environment, and it'll just work like the production environment that you're using now. So you'll see all tabs and all the functionality that Greg is going over today on these slides. And you can just have basically a playground where you can access the files, you can get them formatted correctly, and you can load them in. Just keep in mind that there are two separate environments. So an environment we'll give you access to is a test environment. So anything you do in a test isn't going to be reflected in production, and you can't use these fields either, meaning like if you do an export in test, you're going to be able to take that same file and load it in production because they're two separate systems and they have two separate IDs. I just wanted to clarify that point.
Okay, that more when we get to the end too. There's another question here again about the API. I think the answer is no. Paul, I don't know if you.
So right now, everything is done through the CSV or XML upload. We do not have a direct system connection at this time.
And that there are security issues, I presume, that we would have to manage, which certainly, something down the line we might explore, but at this time the architecture is pretty fixed, and we have pretty high security barriers here at Treasury. It's pretty obvious why. But anyway, that's the state of play at this time. So on here, please keep asking your questions. They're all good. Here's your basic CSV upload, and file comes up. It gives you, and pay attention to the labels, the type of field, the optional labels, or the text is quite useful. Basically, all the data entry then goes from column B, row 5 forward. Data entry is done, but if you familiarize yourself with the fields, the organization, the file structure, it's pretty straightforward. So you are able to then you access the CSV file. Again, you can import new TLR project file. You click, you choose it. You can upload it once you the data entry. Instructions are pretty clear. These are cliff notes to your instructions. Correction is a big deal. I'm sure it's going to be a learner for everybody. When you're filling it out, you'll receive an email if there are errors. There'll be two files attached. We'll show you a screenshot. One error records and the other one with the errors themselves flagged for you. And you'll be able to view these through the portal. The AMIS portal shows green. You have no errors, but the error portal, AMIS portal shows the red. You'll know your errors. Don't get an email. Everything went through well. This is what it'll look like with the error corrections. You'll have the two files, letting you know it's an unsuccessful load, and you'll go through and review these documents to actually. The second one has the actual edits that you have to make, the errors that you have to edit. I don't know, Dave, if you want to say anything else, is what the portal looks like. Again, if it shows green, you're cool. You can push this red, and you're going to be able to get these files, inspect them, and do the error correction.
There's one thing about this. I think I make a mistake, and I think people may make mistake about this too. This what you see is that the 100% of all the records you submit, they have got error for all the records, as you see, 100%. But there's a case we have called a partial success. For example, you submit 10 records, and none of them, good. So that you have a record called partial success. 5 records show that they're good. The 5, you will see the error. So when you fix the error, we just fix the 5 record have the error, and re-upload just that file. You don't have to re-upload the whole thing. I think I did. I re-upload the whole thing, and then the system says there's the problem with unique ID stuff. That's the reason why. So I think I make that mistake. I believe people may make a mistake too.
Let me ask you, I went over the instructions. I think we need to clarify the instructions about that too.
Yeah, also success.
Yeah.
Yes, you just reload the portion that you have error, not the total. Some people just think like you have to reload the whole thing.
Yeah. No, that's an important point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because the system already accepts the successful record in the system already. So.
Yeah. Hey, Mert, you asked about the API. You got some suggestions. Send it on. We have to go through a process here on the API. We're not adverse to exploring innovation, but we have severe constraints on the security end, and we need to make sure that that's the plus. It has to do the procurement process. We do things like that. So it's not something, we move at the speed of government. It is, and we have constraints, but are quite willing to entertain innovational solutions. We don't want to be stuck in the lead either.
Question, from Kim. Will we be able to save the draft on the updated system?
Yes. You think, speak to that save drafts on the updated system?
Well, when you load it into AMIS, it's loaded. There isn't necessarily a draft, but it's not certified. So if intent to have a draft is to go in the system and make other changes before certify, you'll definitely have that capability.
So that's construed as basically it's a working document when you haven't certified. So it's not certified is a working document, and it's resident in the system, and you should be able to come back and recover it, right? Now, would you be work through this with me? I hadn't thought about it, but then you would be doing an update of an existing record, or would?
Well, it just depends what the intent is. I mean, our thought was when the data is ready to be uploaded that there's not going to be any further changes per se if you're using CSV. It would be necessarily efficient process to load in data that isn't ready to be certified, and then have to update it again. I mean, it could work, but our thought was the data that's being uploaded is ready to be certified and doesn't need to be retouched. It can't. It's just it wasn't really the intent, and you're probably going to have go through additional steps and uploads in order to process.
Maybe not understanding things, and maybe this helps Kim or not, but what does the status of the record look like if they save it and then they go away and they come back the next day?
It's still there in the same status. It's just not certified. So basically, you upload the whatever record is, if it's a project or an address or a note, and the data is there. And on the system, you can update it, or you can, if you really want to, you can re-upload it again in the CSV. It's not certified. Once it's certified, you can't make any changes to it.
All right. Thank you.
And this is Oscar. I also had a question, like Yang said. Let's say you have 10 they're split. Like the address file, the file, several files. say 5 contain errors, how to handle the file split up into those three parts? Jan or David, how that's handled?
So what you do is each file is basically independent of the other. You're to upload your projects, and you get, say your projects are uploading, and it's in, say they're new projects. And if 3 go through and 2 error out, on the file, you will get the 3 that errored out. And you will use that file in conjunction with the other file that has the actual errors, and you just revise the file and then use that record or that file that has the 3 records that failed and load it again. And you just basically proceed for each of the files in that sequence.
Okay, well, thank you.
Eric's question. Eric just had a question that came in along these very same lines. Does Dave's question answer Eric's question? I think it does. In other words, you edit and upload only the error files. Is that right?
Correct. Only error file. The thing that, if in my example, like I said, there are 5 new projects, 3 errored out. That means those are 2 got loaded in the system, and those are good.
The question, and I think the example that Yang made, do you accept re-uploading a complete batch, some with records?
Well, so systematically, we make a distinction between a new and update. So if you're using the new template, and situation we just went where you have 2 project records that just got inserted and 3 errored, so using and let's just say you're following, you went off in left field for whatever reason, and you're using the original file again, and you made the mistake that, you fixed the original file as opposed to using the one the system gave you, which is the 3 records. You sit on with the 5. What you're going to get is as soon as those 2 that you fixed work, you should be able to upload those 2, and the 3 that you previously uploaded should come as an error because they already exist. That's what should happen, but again, in that scenario, you're not following the process that's laid out in the guidance.
All right. I'll address Eric's comment where he says that might be burdensome to the user, making the user filter out good records from a batch. The user will never have to do that because what gets returned are only the error records. So those would be corrected, and then that file would be uploaded again.
Exactly.
All right. I think that answers it. Again, you're able to sort of see in this error correction slide here how it's did in the error correction record, which is useful, I think. And this gives you more detail. The actual errors that you've got to edit. It's the same for notes, address, project.
I always have this question, but I haven't had a chance to ask David. When you have the space between the, table type option, the error file, when we see the error file, where you have that space, and does it affect the way we will re-upload the file?
Row 2.
Yeah, row 2, row 4, row 6, row 8.
Good question, and the answer is just we thought it'd be a little bit easier to consume. I mean, you can work it, there's a little bit more space.
Okay, but it's not there for template, right? Because the template, I don't see the space between those.
Right. On the original, it's not there. The original file, when you upload this, it basically uploads the data from row 5 on. Yeah. And 1 through 4 are just kind of like reference, if you would.
Yeah. It doesn't look like this when you receive it, right? Does it look like this when you receive error record?
Yeah.
This is for the error record, but
Right.
the original template, the one you get a template and you put the data, there's no space between them.
Right. I mean,
so that's why you start from row 5. But when you receive the error template, you just space between.
You've got the extra row.
The extra row, yeah. So, so I wonder why how that affects.
So this might be something that is just it's misrepresented in the deck because it was a bug and we actually fixed it. So when you go for, when this is introduced into the system, you shouldn't see those spaces necessarily. Yeah.
That's what
Now my memory's come back here. I think there was a bug opened up against this. We fixed it.
Okay. All right. Well, but if this remains a problem with the templates, I'm sure we'll hear from folks on this call, but let's hope that isn't an issue. So we went to the CSV. That's how you do mass uploads with the CSV approach. We have the XML. And really, Dave, I guess the proof is in the pudding. When we publish the XML schema, people go in to the same interface. You click on the TLR Import-Export tab, selectization, and then you go here and you can get the schema.
Right.
And we have new markets, we have the CDFI, so it's this, you select your schema. It's a little cleaner because I think there was a little overlap between the two schemas. Here, I think a little cleaner in a way, but you get into the system to get the schema.
Right.
And we haven't given you a preview, apologize for that, but it's available next week. Dave, you want to answer about an error file returned as when you're doing the XML upload?
It really follows the same process, if you would, that we just went over with the CSV. So there'll be an error file that has the data that didn't get saved in the system. And there'll also be another error file that has the actual errors themselves with transaction ID locator. So you can basically take that as associated to the transaction ID on the error file, look for it on the data file, and fix it. Now, there is one nuance with the XML. In that the XML has the full string of project, the address, and the note transaction. So, there could be situations where you have partial success and partial failure, and that will be represented in the system when, say, the project itself goes in, but either the address or one of the transactions doesn't. So in that case, the system's going to have a partial failure, partial success, and it's going to be represented, instead of having a full green bar and it's completely successful, you're going to have half green, half red. So that's, again, when the parent kind of loaded in successfully, but one of the child records do not. So to process, though, you have the file that has the data that didn't go through and the error file, and then you'll just, work with the file, fix it, and then upload.
Okay, just follow up with a question. I don't know if you can see it, Dave.
I actually can't see the code myself, so you can just let me know what it is.
I'll ask. It says, is the error file coming back as an XML or a CSV?
So there's basically two. So the two files you're going to get, if you open up the one that actually has a string, it should actually just be an XML file. You could, click on it, Word or Notepad should open up, or you can use whatever other tool that you use to manage the XML, and the file with the actual errors themselves will be in a CSV.
So in the XML, if you do the upload, we have another question from Mara Hawash. Can you submit the whole file again in the case of an XML, even with records that were accepted?
Theoretically, because on the XML we're doing an insert, it should work like that, and it will just that data that got updated touch the ones that he loaded that didn't change. So that should work, but whatever's easier for you. The amount of data in a file relative to the number of errors, it might be easier for you just to use the file that the system gives you and correct that.
Okay. So a related question came in from Kevin Reeves. Can you delete all the records in the batch staging area and then resubmit the entire XML?
Delete all the records in the staging area. Well, I'm going to say you're not going to be able to delete from this. You're basically in date of what's in the system, so you're not allowed to delete that.
Okay, I think probably we're going to need to take on questions that are coming in and peruse these and perhaps provide a little bit more response, maybe in an FAQ. I think these are good questions. That's the things we wanted to get out of this session. So, you will be able to upload it. We do need to clarify, I think, the excellent question about, uploading a file again with good records and corrected bad records. We want to verify that. But, this is how you upload it. This is sort of basic process. Same logic as the CSV. You select the update, and then you can, file button and upload. Any other questions on the XML before we exit? We'll take more, but otherwise we're going to move to the QEI closeout. Okay, Maher Halash. It's important that we're able to submit the whole file again, otherwise our users have to manually mark the accepted records in our system and select specific records to export. Very burdensome. I presume.
I think Paul answered that question, right? You don't have to manually select it because the file return, the error file return, just return the error file. So you don't have to get into the whole, file and then pick which one correct. No, that's not the case.
But in the case of the XML, are you getting back the whole record?
Yeah, you're getting back the entire string on the XML. So if you had a case where you had a whole hundreds of records, and what the scenario is here, but let's just say you have 50 go in, half go in, half don't. You could use the original file. You could just fix it for those 50 that errored in function with the error file that you get, and you can re-upload it, and that would work.
Okay.
Yeah, that will work.
All right. Good. So in a way, it looks like there's more flexibility with the XML than there.
There is more flexibility with the XML than there is with the CSV.
Okay. All right. I hope that is well news to folks. But again, we do take it seriously. We'll look at in terms of trying to clarify an FAQ. And then if you have further thoughts or suggestions, please provide them. I think you know how to reach out to us. And we do want to hear from you. That's why we're doing it. So further questions on this ML and CSV upload, and I know this is the learning curve. To the QEI closeout report briefly. This is just one of several of the sort of additional reports for the life cycle of the new markets. As you know, the closeout report is something that's needed for new markets uniquely. And attempt to sort of knit everything together in terms of the QEIs and the clickies over your allocation life cycle, and access it again through allocation award, and you can create you select the closeout report and create it. And at the time, there is no other way to do it than through the user interface, but there is a pick list that's generated here for multiple QEIs displaying. Presumably one of the great improvements will be that we're not going through firewalls and having our legacy allocation tracking system try to talk to CIIS. Now it's all resident in one system, so presumably the QEIs are populating. I know right now literally there are people working on the final data migration on this. And so that you're able at the end of the 7-year reporting period, you'll be able to select the relevant QEIs associated and view the associated transactions and be able to update information. And the functionality is the same as it was before, but what we anticipate is that now everything will be integrated and there won't be these problems of viewing the QEIs and the clickies. All the data points are virtually the same, and I just list them here. As you know, it's conditionally dependent on what type of clicky it was and how you'll view the options. So I didn't exhaust those options. The instructions do talk about it, and you're probably familiar with narrative. Treff, I don't know if he's still on, but I know we had some problems with people the last 3 years being able to complete closeout reports. He had to be patient with everybody and somewhat permissive in requiring this because our system was not working. And it wasn't just the communication between it, the allocation tracking system, and our internal IT system. That is to now not be an obstacle. So presumably it'll be easier for everybody to complete a closeout report. So we hope that this is a new era of more seamless reporting. Still may be some issues with the sub-CDEs. I know that people are working through trying to debug the sub-CDE data of who is entailed in the allocation agreement so that we can do more data migration there. That's sort of the last nit, as I understand it. I don't know, Dave, what's happening now, as I understand it. But it will work better. All right, we'll be glad to follow up with you on that. So on the AMIS test accessibility, Dave, we got to that final slide here. We may want to just take a moment and talk about the accessing the test approach and how we're going to work with the vendors to be able to do this, to make sure that they understand how it works and go about their business of servicing their many clients who they report for.
Right. So the thought here was really just to give the vendors access to a system that they can play around with to get the process down, the upload process, and make sure that things work on production environment. So access it, and that will be kind of the last bullet. You're going to get the help desk. They'll get you set up. And then you'll just, it'll be kind of like self-service in a way. You can just walk with or use the guidance and documentation that's printed on the website and go through the process of either, uploading it via CSV or XML. It's going to work the exact same way in production. you get into any problems that need additional support, then just contact the help desk and they'll be able to walk you through it.
You type in their service request AMIS test environment access or something like that, we should be able to make sure that gets into the queue with Creative so that they can have direct contact with you. You can set up the test account and you can get assistance in a timely fashion to learning curve quickly so that you can do your business and help us serve those clients. Any other thoughts or questions about this? So I think that's it for today. It was a lot to cover. It was quite useful. There's no doubt about it. We want to make this test bed available. I mean, it's going to be critical. We knew that to begin with, and we reached out to you specifically to do this. You folks to be offering up this service. We want to assure this functionality is available. That's odd. So at the end of our presentation with one minor addition of information, which is our usual help desk sources that you need to, if you have questions, contact us either through the AMIS help desk or the Side Fund help desk. Presumably most of this is going through the AMIS help desk. For some reason you need questions around compliance in particular, you may want to go through the CDFI Fund help desk, or you need to contact a subject matter expert, you can use the CDFI Fund help desk also. I think that we had today. We still are willing to entertain questions because we have 25 more minutes, although if we end early, that's probably good for everybody too. What we're hoping to do is to be able to get everybody in to do this testing over the course of the next couple of weeks. We want to get your hands on because the way this is going to work best is getting everybody up the learning curve fast. Any other questions, feel free either to type in a question or call. I think the call number is still available. Operator, could you remind folks if they do want to call, what they do?
Yes, if you would like to ask a question over the phone, please press *1. If you'd like to dial into the conference, please do so at 1-800-369-3380 and reference passcode 3067318.
Take any further questions, and if that is, we really am glad that you were able to attend. We really do appreciate the feedback. It's hard to do something this complex and have some bugs, and you guys are going to be first in line to help us with any of those issues, and we really value your expertise and technical abilities, and also it's about innovating and improving. We do want to do that, and willing to move as fast as government constraints will permit us to do so. That's what we had for today. Appreciate your attendance and your input. Any questions? Otherwise, once again, thank you for your attention, and no doubt we'll be having action with you folks going forward. Okay, operator, I think we're going to call it a day.
Thank you. That concludes today's conference. You disconnect at this time. Speakers, please allow a moment of silence and stand by for your post.